And now, ladies and gentlemen, a real treat for me, and I know for you. We have on the line the inimitable, the one, the only, the incredible Bob Hope, author of, let's see if we have this title right, Don't Shoot, It's Only Me?
Yes, sir. How are you?
Well, you know, we were just talking about you the other day with some people, and just amazed not only at your longevity, but the vigor you have. Why didn't you write a book on how you did it?
Well, I did it because, let me tell you, the way to do it is just to be, have a little fun every once in a while. I think that's a very important thing, you know, because I never stop entertaining and never stop hearing laughs. And I'm around people that like to laugh, and around people that write laughs, and it's a good atmosphere.
Well, you wouldn't know what to do if you weren't entertaining, would you? I mean, maybe
so.
Play a little golf, but that's about it.
Yeah, I get my golf in. That's that.
Do you have any philosophy you could share? Bob, we were talking to somebody the other day. We're trying to figure out what it's all for. You know, what is it all for? What does it mean?
What it's all for?
Yeah.
Where else are we going to go? I mean, if we don't know, what else is... That's a wonderful line. What else is it all for? I think that's funny.
Well, if you didn't have any laughs, it really would be not worth living, would it?
That's true. That's true. You know, that's why I think it's a marvelous thing that today the entertainment people can get. And especially with this television bit, you know? It's a wonderful thing. But I remember when we didn't have this, all we had was radio. You remember that, too.
Yeah, that's where you were...
And before radio, how did they do it? Vaudeville?
I guess that's right, vaudeville.
I guess they all have to look at Jack Benny and George Burns.
Bob, speaking of Jack Benny and George Burns, they say that if George Burns would say, "Hello, Jack," Jack would fall down laughing.
Oh, God, he had him in stitches all the time.
Is there some guy that has had that effect on you?
Well, no, not really. No, I love Burns. Burns, I love anything he does. We did a show at Madison Square Garden last November, and we're going to do another one at Sun City on November the 2nd, because we work together. He has me do Gracie for him.
You like to work with him because he's about the only guy in the country older than you.
That's right. It's kind of strange being just a few years younger than God.
How is he, Bob?
He's pretty good. He stays in pretty good shape.
You still smoking cigars?
Yeah, but he doesn't inhale. That's a prop. that's a show business prop. You know, he uses that to wait for laughs. A
lot of comedians used to do that in the old days, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Oh, a hell of a lot of them.
They used to call that working with a heater, didn't they?
That's right. That's right. And they used to time the jokes with that. Now, George knows, the audience knows when to laugh. When he starts taking a little suck on that cigar, they know that's their intermission, and they can laugh in there.
Bob, I understand in your book, Don't Shoot, It's Only Me, you got the title because of all the military shows you did. Is that the idea? You were at the war front?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's Mel's title. Mel Shavelson's title. He wrote the book with me, and that's his title, and I think it's pretty good.
Who stands out in your mind on all these shows that you did? As you mentioned, before TV, you were doing that. World War II, you actually started even before we got into World War II, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I started May the 6th on 1941.
How did that come about, Bob?
Well, we were broadcasting at Sunset and Vine. That's where NBC was in those days. And the producer said to me, it's in the book, I think, that they want you down at March Field in Riverside. I said, what's that? He said, it's an Air Force base, and they want you to come down to do the show next week. I said, what for? There's no war. And I didn't know anything about that kind of entertaining the troops or anything. And I didn't know he had a brother down there in the service. So I didn't say no. And the next week I found myself on a bus with Francis Langford, Jerry Colonna, Skinny Ennis, and the band, and we're on the way to March Field. Well, the audience was so sensational, I said, wait a minute, how long has this been going on? because it was a little different from Sunset and Vine. You know, Sunset and Vine, we got a lot of those people that were just hanging around looking for a job. They'd come in and sit down and say, how did they get away with it, you know?
I know. I used to work at Sunset and Gower. I'd look out the window and see them lining up at the Copper Kettle across the way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I said, let's get some more of this. So next week we book Pendleton, Camp Pendleton, and then the down. Well, it's all in the book. And we never stopped then for 5 years.
Bob, you had a little problem a couple of months ago, and I took a keen interest in it because I think there's too many pressure groups in this country telling other people what to do. And I'm thinking about, what is the valley? I forget the name. Thousand Oaks is. You had that property out there?
Agoura, yeah.
Yeah, in Agoura.
Yeah.
What happened there? You had invested in this property. You paid taxes on it all these years.
It's unbelievable.
What happened, Bob?
Well, there was a group out there that decided they didn't want a golf course on that property. And so they started a whole thing with the environmentalists, and it's so ridiculous. You know, the PGA has been wonderful about it. They've been as far as I'm concerned, the PGA are the heroes. Because anybody who doesn't like a golf course is a little sick, because a golf course is nothing but fresh air and a place for the animals and everything else.
So what they want you to do, leave the land just vacant like that?
Yeah, they want to leave it vacant and so they can run on it or something. In fact, one of the guys called me and said, gee, my daughter runs on that property. I hope you never sell that. I told him, I said, well, if your daughter plays golf, she can play golf on it after we get the thing in there.
But you had made a statement. I admired what you said. It sounded like you were standing up to these pressure tactics. What happened?
Well, you know, it's just a little silly. You don't want to get into that. You don't want to make an enemy out of anybody. But it's just too ridiculous, you know. And Cranston got into it, for instance. Senator Cranston, but I think he's finding out now that he's a little wrong, because all the golfers in this area, about 125,000 of them, are forming a committee to make sure that this golf course is going in and the other one down on the coast is going in.
Well, if Cranston's against it, then I'm for it. I mean, it would have to be something good, then.
Oh, God. It's so ridiculous.
You guys were supposed to retire him the last time out.
Yeah, right. You're so right.
Bob, in all the years that you have been such a predominant presence on the entertainment scene, and all the things that you've done, which are truly incredible, is there one event in your life that stands out above any of the others, Bob?
Oh, there's so many of them. So many, you know, and most of them are around what's in the book there, about all the presidents and all the things like that. You know, when I had a chance to meet all the presidents and all the different foreign leaders, whoever dreamed that I would do that.
We were watching a motion picture. There's a channel out here that plays what they call American Movie Classics. It was a film you had made with Madeleine Carroll a long time ago.
My favorite blonde.
Yeah, and someone said to me in the room, they said, you know, Bob Hope was a good actor. And I said, he would love to hear that. But you know, you weren't doing the stand-up routine or anything like that. You were playing a scene.
Well, I did 59 pictures like that. 7 of them with Crosby.
How was it working with him, Bob?
Oh, it was a ball, just a ball.
You never got Dorothy Lamour though in any of those pictures, did you?
Yeah, I got her one time.
You did?
Yeah, and then we had a baby, and it looked like Bing.
Oh no!
Don't you remember that Road to Utopia? And I said to Buddy DeSilva, the producer, I said, you can't do that. He said, we'll do it. And the audience loved it.
That was a little ahead of its time, Bob.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be coming out about now.
Bob, what do you think about the type of material that passes as comedy now? Does it shock you? Does it surprise you that words you would never dream of using even in the men's room, people are using on stage all over the place?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You know, but it had to happen. There's no censorship. There's no censorship anymore in the movies or in the television. So it has to happen.
What you wouldn't want to go back to that, though, would you, Bob?
Back to what?
Censorship?
Per se.
I mean, the Hayes office forced us to see a lot of dull movies, Bob.
Remember? You remember?
Yeah, I sure do. Bob, are you at Toluca Lake right now?
Yes, indeed.
It's one of the rare times you're home.
Yeah, well, it won't be long. I'm going up to Vancouver and playing a golf tournament Wednesday.
There he goes again. There he goes again. Would you give Dolores our regards? We had such a pleasure meeting her years ago for a Columbus Day parade. What a fine lady.
Right, sure will.
Thank you, Bob Hope.
Okay, Bob. Good to talk to you.
That's Bob Hope, ladies and gentlemen. You don't need me to tell you that. And he's a fat. You realize he's 87 years old? 87 years old. And truly a remarkable human being. When I was on the air in Los Angeles, Bob was, whenever he was in town, he told me he was a listener. And he quoted certain things that happened on the program that I did out there. And I knew he wasn't kidding. And you'll like this. One time at a Ram game, we wound up sitting together. And at first I thought, I felt a little strange. You know, I'm no buddy of Bob Hope's. He barely knew me. And in no time flat, Joe, I realized he's just another guy. Down-to-earth guy, no pretense at all. Just a wonderful, sincere, unassuming guy. Carl, this is Bob Grant. You're on WABC. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
What's on your mind, Carl?
Oh, not too much, except this Mandela visit's got me a little bit bothered.
Okay.
You know, about 30 years ago, we had a ticker tape parade in New York for a guy named Fidel Castro. Do you remember him?
Was there a ticker tape parade? I don't recall.
Well, I know one thing. I
don't believe there was a ticker tape parade.
Well, they had a parade for him anyhow.
There was no official ticker tape parade. There was no official New York City sponsored parade for the guy.
I know, but I remember he was roasting chickens in the apartment.
We've come from a ticker tape parade to roasting chickens in his apartment. What a come down in no time flat. There was no parade for the guy. I'm telling you, there was no parade for the guy. He was here representing his government at the United Nations.
Yes, and look what we've got today. We made a big time of him, and we said what a wonderful man he was. Now we got
We
this
did?
guy
No, wait a
coming
minute. Not everybody said what a wonderful man he was. Jack Parr may have said so. The New York Times may have said so. Reporter Frank Matthews may have said so. But officially, we did not laud him in that way. We were hopeful that he would turn out to be all right. But we didn't have a big ticker tape parade. And I'm tired of people calling saying we did, because we did not.
All right, I'll believe you. But let me ask you this. He didn't come up Broadway, or we never saw him then with communist flag right behind him, did we?
Look, if you want to talk about Mandela, talk about Mandela, but don't confuse the issue by talking about Castro, okay?
But I'm just trying to draw an analogy. I've been around a few years. I'm almost 75 years old. And I've seen a lot of these things come and go. And this worries me.
When you say a lot of these things come and go, what do you mean by that?
Well, I've been around a bit.
I know you've been around, sir, and I respect you for that. But what do you mean when you say you've seen a lot of these things come and go? What do you mean?
Well, I've seen the way people turn. I mean, we have an idea they're going to be wonderful people. And the next thing you know, they're our enemies. Who knows? I don't know what this man is going to do. What worries me is he is a communist, no doubt about it. And secondly, I don't know, he's been a terrorist. We don't know what he's going to pull.
Well, I don't think he's going to pull an act of terrorism. I think he's already exposed himself, sir. I think he's already revealed what he is by virtue of the fact that these Puerto Rican assassins have been invited to meet him. That's what upsets me. Up until this happened, I had been more or less positive about Mandela coming here, but when I heard that he had invited a person who tried to murder our president in 1950, Harry Truman,
and shoot up our Congress,
and shot 5 congressmen in the House of Representatives, actually went in the House of Representatives and started shooting.
That's right.
That he invited the surviving individuals, there were 4 of them altogether that he had invited. Then I said, hold it, this is not right.
Yep.
Now, he was tried in, I think it was 1964, for sabotage and treason. And at the trial, he did admit that he had planned sabotage, and he did blow up a bridge or a train, and he did do those things, and he did identify himself as a communist. He said, and I quote, "We Communist Party members are the most advanced revolutionaries in modern history." Now, that's what he said in 1964.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, he's coming here. He's going to be feted as a hero, as a dignitary, and it's become it's feeding on itself, this frenzy to laud the man.
That's right, and I don't like the way that's acting. And, you know, another thing that bothers me about this thing, New York is all the time crying the blues about how broke they are. It's going to pay for this $1 million or so it's going to take to clean the city up after he goes up there.
Yeah, well, we're not getting it from the federal government.
There's no doubt about that. It's just as I don't know.
Well,
New Jersey's getting just as bad.
I don't like it either, sir. But that's it. He's going to be here, and you're going to hear nothing but Nelson Mandela for the next 10 days, because he's not only going to be in New York, he's going to a total of 8 cities, and every politician is going to knock himself out to be photographed with the guy, to be seen with him. How that translates into votes remains to be seen. Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Bob. Firstly, I want to tell you you're the only voice of sanity in the whole metropolitan area.
Oh, my.
Yes, the only voice, Bob. And secondly, my husband and I are waiting for the brochure. But the reason I called you, I live in Jersey City, which is a town you like to pass by. But on Memorial Day, we had a very bad incident with 5 adult males barbecuing and drinking in the streets, and then there was a melee and, you know, everything else going by. Just so you know, if you do have enough people calling in, it does help. Last Wednesday, our city council voted to free these men and not have a trial. Fortunately, with enough of us in our areas, different areas, getting together, the prosecutor is going to have the grand jury hear it. So, just so your listeners know, now, none of us know just what went on, but they range in the age from 21 to 26, and they had a barbecue and a alcoholic picnic on the school steps of a public school. Now, the papers were full of about there is no recreation for young teenagers. I think you'll agree that if you go from 21 to 26, you're not a teenager. But again, I just want, you know, your audience to be aware that even if you do live in a very urban city, if enough people call the council and the prosecutor's office, no matter what the outcome is, at least they can't be freed arbitrarily.
You know what it sounds like you're saying? It sounds like you're saying your influence counts, so use it.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And everyone laughed at me, including my husband, when I got a number of people throughout the whole city together just to call.
Well, listen, Marie, I want you to be on that Bob Grant Eastern Europe Discovery
Tour.
Oh, yes,
I'm sure we will be. And I'll be looking forward to it.
Well, that's great. We're going to share a lot of wonderful times together. So you and what's his name? You'll be at JFK on the 26th.
His name is Jim.
Okay.
And thank you again.
All right. Jim and Marie are going to be with us. Okay. On WABC, let's say hello to Bonnie. Hello, Bonnie.
Yes, Bob. I'm just calling to make a few statements about the opening. I'm not sure if it was your opening statement. I came in late. You were talking about the gay activists.
Yes, I was talking about how they turned on Ed Koch, a person who has been in their corner consistently, who has championed their cause consistently, and yet they turned on him. Yes.
Okay. I really don't have a comment about that particular group or that particular incident, although I will tell you that I do not ever agree with any tactics that are violent or hurtful to other people. However, I do want to tell you that I am a lesbian, and you had made some mention as to why they would use queer in their name when you couldn't call them a queer or anything like that. And I have to tell you that it's similar to the same thing where, you know, blacks can call each other nigger, but you or I dare not.
Well, I don't approve of that type
I don't approve of it either, but I wanted to let you know.
Because, you know, if a guy says I represent, you know, one of the reporters was telling me He says, I went over to interview this guy, and I said, would you give your name? And he gave his name, and the guy said, well, what are you with an organization? He says, yes, I represent the queer nation.
Mm-hmm.
And the reporter said, huh? And the guy said, what do you mean? I represent the queer nation. You write that down. And then he showed him his T-shirt, which said queer nation on it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in that I'm not fond of that tactic of that name calling or putting the name that's derogatory on yourself. But I do hear it used quite frequently, so I know that people do it. It's also maybe part of that mentality of make fun of myself before you can type thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, a lot of people do. Also, I wanted to let you know that I don't agree with, and I know a lot of people who don't agree with the tactics of some of the groups, like some of the act-up things that have happened, the disturbances at St. Patrick's Cathedral. There are a lot of us who deplore that, who think it's horrible.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's not anything I would ever want to be involved in, nor would I want anyone I know to be involved in it. But I do want you to know that I understand why people are angry or upset and why people use poor judgment.
But angry with Ed Koch, now they are way off base. He has been consistently in their corner.
And I honestly did not follow Ed Koch. I really have just recently moved here, and I have not followed him, so I don't know too much about him. But I do know that I have seen several things where he has been in their corner. I've also heard things that he has backed, from other people, secondhand, thirdhand, that he hasn't always followed up on what he's said. But that's neither here nor there. I wanted to let you know, because I've heard you, quite a while, and I've heard tapes of you. My father tapes you, and he likes you a lot. And I've listened to you, and I've heard a lot of, I don't know what to call it, anti-gay. I find you to be a reasonable man in so many ways, and yet I really get so upset when I hear you speak about the gay issue because I feel you are so close-minded on it. And I wanted to let you know from someone's perspective who is also a reasonable person and who's not out there to hurt other people, that really what most of us want, excuse me, I am nervous, what most of us want is just to be able to live our lives without having to be afraid all the time. And these are the things that we're afraid of. We're afraid of being physically attacked. I know you don't, go in for that. I know you don't call for physical attacks on people. I know even as much as you despise the gay community, you don't.
I don't despise the gay community. I despise the elements of the gay community that you are just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I loathe ACT UP. I loathe them. They are vile.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like this group, Queer Nation.
Mm-hmm.
But I know individual homosexuals who are very, very much like you, who feel the same way about a lot of issues, and who don't want to flaunt your lifestyle, but just want to be left alone.
Well,
I have no problem with that aspect of what you're saying.
Okay, but I'm not sure what you mean by flaunt my lifestyle. For instance, I can't walk down the street holding my lover's hand without feeling afraid of being attacked or...
Well, I don't know. Girls can hold hands easier, but there's a little bit of a double standard.
Okay.
If girls are holding hands, no matter how old they are, whether they're 15, 20, 25, 30, people don't really look askance. But when...
They do and they don't.
Yeah.
They do and they don't.
Anyway, the holding hands is not really what I had in mind. What I had in mind goes far beyond that, and unfortunately, we don't even have time to get into it. But I thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, Bob. My wife is a Canadian citizen, and I have landed immigrant status in Canada. We know about Mulroney. Mulroney is what we would call a low-wiker Republican. He's what they call progressive conservative, which is a real liberal. The reason he won the election last time, he had no opposition. It was the lesser of two evils.
Well, his apple polishing with Mandela was getting embarrassing. It was overdoing it.
Oh, yeah, that's the kind of guy he is, But anyway, I'd like to say that he was one of the first to demand sanctions against South Africa. And he won't let a South African athlete perform in Canada. That got Gary Player, a real gentleman, mad. I'd like to go on to Mandela now. Look, South Africa gave him almost everything he demanded practically, and yet he goes around to every nation and tries to grind their face into the dirt with complete more and more sanctions. Now, there's 110,000 Jewish people in Johannesburg. If they ever get the upper hand, God help us all. Here's another thing I like to say.
Wait a minute, wait, stop right there.
Go ahead.
You know, a bunch of non sequiturs here, disjointed statements you're making. There are 110,000 Jewish people in Johannesburg, and if they ever get the upper hand,
I don't mean
God help
I don't
us
mean
all.
the Jewish people. I mean
I'm quoting you. What do you mean by that?
I said if Mandela and Tutu ever get the upper hand in South Africa with their anti-Semitism, there's going to be a lot of trouble.
You really think they're anti-Semitic?
Absolutely. I know it. I have friends. I have a very good friend in South Africa.
Or to quote Sonny Carson, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm just anti-white.
Yeah.
Maybe it's anti-white. You mean they're just going to single out the 110,000 Jews, Al?
No, not exactly. Here's another thing I'd like to say.
There's a lot you'd like to say, Al, but you'll have to save it for another time. Al will be back again. All right, so everybody's talking about Nelson Mandela. He will arrive in New York at about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Every television station, or most of them, will cover every move he makes, will keep their cameras focused on him. And there is a frenzy already building, a hysteria already building about this man's visit to the United States. There's another man from South Africa who is visiting the United States. The Bob Grant program is the only program in New York that's paying any attention to him. And I'm proud to be able to say that we have it's so stupid, but we have the courage to introduce Tamsanga Linda with us right now. I appreciate the fact that you have come to our studio, and I know that you are the former mayor of Ibayi Township in South Africa, and you are the president of the Eastern Province Council Association, which is composed of 14 township councils. You say, Mr. Linda, that Mandela does not represent the vast majority of blacks in your country. Is that what you say?
That is true. Yes.
Why is it then that he seems to command such attention? If he doesn't have the following of the majority of blacks in your country, sir, why then all this attention being paid to him?
I am sure the time he has saved from jail, 27 years as it usually reported, I think it's a contributing factor on why people or countries are always giving a lot of attention to Nelson Mandela.
What about your position here? Why are you speaking out? Maybe it would be more prudent if you would wait until his visit was concluded and then speak out.
My position here, first of all, I'm a moderate black in South Africa. I am those people who have been fighting for a long time that the white government must talk on a roundtable conference, but that must be done against violence. There must be no violence. That is why I am here today, try to put the other side of the story about South Africa and how things are going there.
All right, how are things going there? We get a picture that there have been changes made that a few months ago, certainly a couple of years ago, would have been unthinkable. But you have Mr. de Klerk, who has done things that his predecessors never would have done. Are you heartened by that?
No. Every man or woman in South Africa, he wants to see change in that country. We have been asking this through evolution for a number of years, that there must be change for South Africa to be accommodated again in the free world. South Africa must change its apartheid policies. Nobody can ever say that South Africa has been holy or there has been no wrong things in South Africa. There has been wrong things in South Africa. And the white regime was being festered with a lot of problems by blacks like myself for this change.
Mr. Linda, the fact that in South Africa now they are dismantling some vestiges of apartheid. For example, heretofore various facilities set for blacks only, for whites only. De Klerk has announced that is changing, that it's not going to be for blacks only, for whites only. How do you feel about that?
That is what we have been calling for a number of years. We are very pleased about the steps that are being taken in trying to dismantle apartheid in South Africa. That has been a very good step forward.
How do you feel about sanctions? Do you think that enough has been done that maybe the sanctions that have been imposed, economic sanctions, can now be lifted?
We feel very strongly that at this present hour, with the changes that has already taken place in South Africa, the release of the political prisoners, especially Robben Island, Victor Verster prison, we feel up to this stage, sanctions must be lifted. South Africa, to get into that negotiation table, must be allowed to have a strong economy. Jobs must be created for people in South Africa. If now we talk of sanctions and then we talk of negotiation, then it smells a rat somewhere, somehow.
We hear so much in this country that most Americans don't understand the complexities of life in not only South Africa, but all of Africa, that we tend to just lump all of you people together. You know, we say, well, he's black, so they must be the same. We aren't sophisticated